I still remember the night everything began to shift. We were having dinner, nothing special, just pasta and salad. David set his fork down, gave me that serious look of his, and asked, "Don't you think Grace has had a rough life?" At first, I didn't get it. Grace? Our nanny? What do you mean? He leaned forward, lowering his voice like he was sharing some tragic secret. She's a single mom with 5 kids, her dad's a gambler, her mom has cancer. Can you imagine how hard that must be? I looked over at Grace, bent on her knees scrubbing the hardwood floor. She wore that uniform she insisted on. A little too tight, a little too short. I just stared at her back for a second, then looked back at him. Before I could answer, he went on, his tone steady, almost rehearsed. I was thinking we should give her a raise. 10,000 a month. Plus a bonus, better health insurance too. That way she won't have to worry about feeding her kids. She could focus on working here, for us. I set my fork down slowly, wiped my mouth with the napkin. Or you could just admit what this really sounds like. You want to keep her here, no matter what it costs, like she's not our nanny, but... I paused, my voice sharp. Your second wife, doesn't it sound like that? David's face went red. Emily, don't twist this. It's not like that. Can't you just show some compassion for once? She's struggling. And you act like you can't see it. I laughed, short and cold. Compassion? David, you run a hospital department, you supervise hundreds of people. Do you make that much yourself? Does your own wife live like that? And suddenly the nanny's the one who deserves it. That hit him. He hesitated, then forced a breath through his nose. I just think as human beings, we should help when we can. But you have no empathy, Emily. None. Maybe I don't, I said, leaning back in my chair, because I'm not interested in playing Mother Teresa in my own marriage. So I'll make this simple. Either she leaves, or I do. That silence after my words, it stretched too long. He should have said something. Chosen me, chosen us. Instead, his fist came down hard on the table. So just because I want to give her a raise, you threaten divorce? Really? You think you can control everything I do just because you're from the Carter family? Because you paid for med school, pulled strings to get me into your brother's hospital? His voice had a sharp edge I hadn't heard before. Then he looked me dead in the eye and asked, "Do I even get a say in this marriage? Or am I just a piece of your charity?" I felt something inside me freeze. That was the first moment I realized he wasn't just defending her, he was choosing her. Grace, standing in the corner with her mop, piped up in a shaky voice, "Mrs. Carter, please don't misunderstand. I would never. David's just been kind to me. And I'm not worthy of that. I'm divorced. I have 5 kids. Who would even want me?" Her voice cracked like she was embarrassed to exist. And yet, in that too-tight dress, with those long legs and black stockings, she looked anything but ashamed. I thought of the pillow I'd found in David's study, an anime made printed across it, looking suspiciously like Grace. I thought of his phone wallpaper, how it had always been that cartoonish face. Her face. I turned back to him. Grace says she doesn't know what you see in her. Should I answer? Her body, her big helpless eyes. Or maybe those 5 sons. Isn't that what you've been dreaming of, David? Sons you could never have with me. His eyes went wide, panic flashing across his face. He rushed over, grabbed my wrist and hissed, "Don't you dare. Don't you dare say that out loud." But it was too late. The words were already between us. Heavy and poisonous. From then on, the house didn't feel like mine anymore. Grace was everywhere, her perfume lingering in the hallway, her laugh floating from the kitchen. David would come home late, slip into bed when he thought I was asleep, like I might contaminate him with my touch. And the worst part, he started looking at me differently, not like a wife, not even like a partner, more like an obstacle. Something standing between him and whatever fantasy he thought Grace could give him. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw her out myself, but something told me to wait, to watch, to gather what I needed. If David wanted to humiliate me in my own home, then I'd make sure the day came when he couldn't hold his head up anywhere else. That night, lying in bed alone, I stared at the ceiling and whispered to myself, "One last chance, David, one, and if you waste it, you'll regret ever underestimating me." The next evening, I came home early. I wanted to catch them if there was anything to catch. The house smelled like overcooked food. Grace was setting plates on the table, her cheeks flushed from the heat. The dishes looked burnt, but David sat there eating like it was the best meal he'd ever had. 3 servings. He didn't even notice when I walked in. I stood in the doorway, my heart pounding, watching the man who used to complain if my steak was cooked 1 degree past medium rare shovel down charred chicken like it was a delicacy. Really, David? I said, my voice calm but sharp. You're going to sit there and pretend this is edible? He froze for a second, then set down his fork with a clatter. Emily, not tonight. Don't start. I walked closer, keeping my eyes on him. I'll ask one more time. Do you want her to stay here? His jaw tightened. He pushed his chair back, stood up, towering over me like he thought that would intimidate me. Why do you keep pushing? Haven't I made myself clear? She's not leaving. My chest burned, so it's her or me. Stop making this about ultimatums, he snapped. Not everything is about you, Emily. You suffocate me. You control every part of my life. You think because you paid my tuition, because your brother hired me, you own me. You don't. Grace actually listens to me. She doesn't treat me like I'm some project she rescued. He glanced at her just for a second, but I saw it. That softness in his eyes. The kind of look he hadn't given me in years. Grace's hands trembled around the serving spoon. She stepped forward, her voice quivering. Please, Mrs. Carter, don't be upset. I know my place. I know people think I'm nothing. Even my parents treated me like trash. My kids tell me I'm useless. And now, if I've ruined your marriage, maybe I shouldn't even be alive. She pressed a hand to her forehead and lurched toward the wall like she might bash her head against it. David jumped up so fast his chair tipped over. He caught her in his arms. Grace, don't you dare say that. You're not nothing. You're the kindest woman I've ever met. You don't deserve any of this. His voice cracked. I stood there, staring, as the world I thought I lived in shattered right in front of me. Grace's lips trembled. But then she smiled faintly through her tears. Do you really mean that? And then, God help me, he reached up and touched her hair, tender like she was made of glass. He raised his voice, almost like he wanted me to hear every word. Of course I do. Not like some people who walk around stiff as boards, barking orders like they're CEOs at home. Grace, you're warm, you're real, you're everything Emily will never be. The laugh that came out of me was sharp, ugly. I grabbed the nearest vase and hurled it across the room. It shattered against his back, water and flowers exploding everywhere. Get out, I shouted, my chest heaving. Take your maid and get the hell out of my house. Grace shrieked, clutching David's shirt. He wrapped himself around her like a shield, glaring at me as if I were the villain. Emily, are you insane? Do you want to kill me? Or is it just easier for you to bully someone weaker than you? Grace is innocent in all this. She's the only decent person left in this house. I could barely hear him over the roar in my head. Years of sacrifices. Nights of working myself half dead to prove my worth, to prove my love, and this was where we ended up. Him standing there, protecting her from me. My brother's words echoed in my mind. Emily, if you give your heart to the wrong man, you'll destroy yourself before he even touches you. Maybe he was right. I didn't say another word. I didn't even cry. I just walked upstairs, step by step, each one heavier than the last. Behind me, I could hear Grace whimpering, David whispering sweet reassurances, the sound of betrayal sinking into my bones. At the top of the stairs, I stopped, my hand clutched the railing until my knuckles turned white. Then I turned my head, just enough to let my words drop like ice. You've made your choice, David, and so have I. I went into my room, closed the door. And for the first time in our marriage, I started to plan not how to save us but how to end him. I didn't cry that night, not once. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, and something inside me shifted. The pain was still there, but it had hardened, crystallized into something sharper. By morning, I wasn't his wife anymore. I was his executioner. I called Daniel first thing. My brother had always known how to read between my silences. He didn't ask if I was okay, he knew the answer. He only asked, how far are you willing to go? All the way, I said. I want him stripped of everything. His career, his reputation, his comfort. I want him to feel as small as he made me feel. Daniel was quiet for a beat then. Then you'll need evidence, and I'll help you get it. Over the next few weeks, I played my part carefully. At home, I was distant, polite even. David mistook my silence for surrender. He thought the storm had passed. Meanwhile, Daniel's investigators pulled strings, traced money transfers. I sat in Daniel's office late at night, scrolling through files, my stomach churning but my resolve stronger with every revelation. There it was, payments. $5,000 a month to Grace, regular as clockwork, hotel records that overlapped with the months before our wedding. Text messages where she called herself his lucky charm, bragging about her miracle womb. I wanted to vomit, but instead, I printed everything and filed it neatly into folders. Evidence wasn't about emotion. It was about precision. One night, David texted me from the hospital. "Can't come home. Grace's little boy has a fever. Needs me here." I stared at the message until the words blurred. Then I typed back just 2 words. "I don't care." He didn't reply, but minutes later, Grace sent me a video. David, sitting on a hospital bed, reading a storybook to a small boy with big dark eyes. Her caption, "Don't they look alike?" I didn't respond, but that was the moment I knew. He wasn't just cheating, he was building a whole second life. The hospital's annual medical board conference was coming up. Every major doctor in the state would be there. David was scheduled to give a keynote speech, his big moment, the one he'd bragged about for months. I saw my chance. I stood in front of the mirror the morning of the conference, pinning my hair back, fastening the silver earrings he'd once claimed he'd bought for me before I found out they'd been meant for Grace. Now, they were mine again, and I wore them like a warning. When I arrived at the conference hall, Daniel was already waiting. He slipped me a USB drive. "Everything you need is on here," he said. His eyes softened for the first time in weeks. "Emily, once you do this, there's no going back. You'll burn every bridge." "Good," I said. "That's the point." David walked onto the stage with Grace by his side. She wasn't in her maid's uniform anymore. She wore a white lab coat. Pretending to be a physician, her hand slipped into his, and they laughed quietly, like teenagers sneaking a kiss behind the bleachers. The sight almost made me laugh. They actually thought they could play doctor and patient in front of the entire state's medical board. When it was my turn to take the stage, I walked up in heels that echoed against the hardwood. David's smile faltered the second he saw me. "Before we begin," I said into the microphone, my voice steady, "I'd like to share a short presentation. A tribute to Dr. David Miller's many accomplishments." The lights dimmed on the screen behind me. Photo after photo appeared. Grace, in various costumes-made outfits, short skirts, cosplay that left nothing to the imagination. Screenshots of their messages. "You're the only man I'd ever want to give sons to." Hotel check-ins, bank transfers. The room erupted. Gasps, whispers, people pulling out their phones to record, and then the clincher, a DNA report confirming that David had been diagnosed years ago with infertility. The words were clinical, undeniable. I leaned back against the podium, let the silence stretch just enough, and said, "But somehow, our miraculous Grace managed to give him not 1, not 2, but 5 sons. Quite the medical marvel, don't you think?" Laughter broke out, cruel and unrestrained. Someone in the back whistled. David's face drained of color. Grace's mascara ran in black streaks down her cheeks. He shot to his feet, fists clenched. "Emily, you think humiliating me in public makes you strong? You're only proving how heartless you are." I walked closer, close enough that only he could hear the ice in my voice. "You think I care if I look heartless, after what you've done to me? This isn't about saving us, David. This is about ending you." Security moved in when he tried to lunge at me. Cameras flashed, and just like that, his fall from grace was broadcast to everyone who'd once respected him. The next day, divorce papers were on his desk. I didn't even wait for his response. I knew he'd never sign willingly, but the courts would finish what I started. He begged, of course. He called, texted, even showed up outside the gate in the pouring rain, shouting that he'd changed, that he loved me, that grace had meant nothing. I didn't believe him, not anymore. His tears weren't repentance, they were desperation. "You're not sorry you betrayed me." I told him through the intercom, my voice calm. "You're sorry you got caught." Weeks later, the divorce was finalized. David lost his position at the hospital. No reputable clinic would touch him after the scandal. Grace tried to hold on, but public opinion tore her apart. Parents whispered when she showed up at school, patients turned their backs, and then the final nail. Daniel handed me another report. Grace's children weren't even David's. They were her ex-husband's. I sent the results to him the day he married her in a rushed courthouse ceremony. No flowers, no friends, just desperation. The text I attached said, "Congratulations, you got exactly what you deserved." After the divorce, the silence in my house was deafening. No more late-night footsteps trying to sneak into bed. No more perfume that wasn't mine lingering in the hallways. For the first time in years, the space belonged to me again. I thought I'd feel empty. I thought the loneliness would crush me. Instead, I felt lighter, as if I'd been carrying a weight for so long. I forgot how it felt to stand up straight. David's downfall was swift and brutal. Hospitals blacklisted him. Old colleagues wouldn't return his calls. The man who once strutted around, proud of his title, was reduced to begging for freelance shifts at clinics that didn't even want his name on their rosters. I heard he eventually married Grace in a tiny courthouse, her parents threatening to disown her if he didn't. A week later, I made sure the paternity reports reached him. His sons weren't his, not one of them. The irony was almost poetic. He'd thrown away everything for nothing. But by then, I didn't care anymore. His ruin wasn't my purpose. My freedom was. I poured myself into work. Daniel handed me more responsibility at Carter Pharmaceuticals, and for once, I didn't resist. Numbers, projects, negotiations, they didn't betray you. They were steady, measurable, and honest in ways people rarely were. At first, I thought that would be enough. Build my empire, keep everyone at arm's length, never let anyone close enough to hurt me again. But life has a way of surprising you. One evening, at a charity event, a man introduced himself. Not flashy, not arrogant, just kind. He asked me about my work, but he actually listened to the answers. Weeks turned into months, and slowly, carefully, I let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, I wasn't doomed to repeat my past. I didn't need him to save me. That was the difference. I'd already saved myself. Sometimes, late at night, I'd think back to the girl I was, the one who begged her husband to love her, who stayed silent to keep the peace, who thought being a wife meant sacrificing herself. I don't know if I'd recognize her anymore. Or maybe I'd just reach out, take her hand, and whisper, "You're stronger than you know. Don't be afraid to walk away," because that's what it came down to in the end. Not revenge, not humiliation, not proving who was right or wrong. It was about choosing myself. Finally, without apology, David faded into the background. A ghost of a chapter I'd already closed. Grace became a name people muttered with pity or scorn, and me. I stepped forward. I wasn't just the woman who'd been betrayed. I wasn't just the wife who'd been left behind. I was Emily Carter, whole, unbroken, and finally free.